thank you so much for coming to the breakout today. We have an incredible session from our next speaker, Torben Grosser, and he is from EventMobi, doing incredible work out there. He's a seasoned event planner and marketer with more than a decade of experience. He joined EventMobi in 2012 and heads up the company's European office. As general manager, Torben built a multidisciplinary team of passionate marketers, sales and support staff, and grew EventMobi into one of Europe's leading event technology brands. If you don't have the app on your phone, you should get it because there's a lot of NWES content that you're missing out on. Torben is passionate about education. He champions EventMobi's product marketing efforts and lectures at Victoria University of Applied Sciences and SRH University in Berlin. Let's give it up for Torben.
Have a great session.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that very kind introduction. Welcome. It is super exciting to be here. I know that you probably all have been really busy and running around today. So I just want to take this first 5 seconds as an opportunity for you all guys to just take a deep breath. It's all okay. There's nothing that can happen to you. You're in a good place. And I'm really glad that you're here. My name is Torben. I'm the VP of Strategic Partnership and Channels at EventMobi. And I actually flew in from Hamburg, Germany. And I'm so excited to be here in Seattle. It's my second time. Has anybody ever been in Hamburg? I see a few hands. That's amazing. For those that haven't been to Hamburg, when I came here on the airplane, I thought about it, and I realized that Hamburg and Seattle, they're somewhat similar as a city. You know, on your right hand, you have Hamburg, the port of Hamburg, and the port of Seattle. So both have massively important ports to their respective countries. There's beautiful outdoors. Also, funnily enough, both Hamburg and Seattle are really important music cities. So obviously, Seattle plays a crucial role for Nirvana. And the Beatles actually took off in Hamburg. While they're from the UK, they took off in Hamburg. And the other thing that people maybe don't know about Hamburg is that just like Seattle, we do build airplanes. You have Boeing, we have Airbus, and our airplanes tend to, lose parts in flight. So very similar cities in that regard. Sorry, I'm sorry. I've heard, if you're watching the recording, maybe you didn't see this joke because it was deemed inappropriate by the editor. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about the untapped, let me just make that slide move away. We're talking about the untapped power of the annual conference, and we're talking about what we call event-led communities. And so the first thing that I want to know from you guys in the audience, and you can just do this by show of hands. Are you organizing events? Is this what you do, or do you work on the supplier side? So I just want to see a show of hands of people that organize events. Okay, that's almost everybody. Everybody else, you're very welcome to join us on the organizer side. It's fun there. The next question is, are you also in charge of managing the sessions at your event? And if you do, again, show of hands. Okay, few people do the sessions. Can I see a show of hands of who's managing the people, so attendees and so on at your events? All right, I see a bunch of hands. And finally, who of you is managing vendors, sponsors, exhibitors? I see you showing your hands all the time. You're doing everything. Wow, that is impressive. Yes, applause for you for doing everything. And all the other event planners, and also if you're watching this on the recording, my kudos to you. Event planning is such a hard job. So what I want to talk about today is how we can turn this around, how we can make sure that your event lives on. And there's a few simple things that you can do to make this happen. So the first thing I want to revisit with you is, Once your event is over, so we're still at the start of Northwest Event Show, but once an event is over, there's usually a couple of things that happen. So first things first, there's usually a thank you email that's coming from, the organizer. Then there's probably a survey that you may receive through tools such as MailChimp. Then all the vendors follow up with you. And I know from attending trade shows, it's the craziest. After I go to an event for 2 weeks, I'm just getting an email daily from people that I did not even talk to. And then there's tons of LinkedIn connection requests. And again, the same people that you didn't talk to that sent you an email now sent you the connection request because that's what they do, and so on. The second thing that happens is you probably want to make sure that if you're an event organizer, if you're an association, for example, you also target your audiences in the areas where they're at to do more local events. You maybe want to invite them to webinars that are happening in between your annual conference. And maybe there's something like a mid-year conference, depending on what kind of events you run, if you're an association, whether you're corporate, and so on. And so just sharing these things is the second thing that usually happens after a conference. The third element that happens is that there is usually a lot of stuff happening on social media. There's more emails from more random people. Maybe if you're an association or if you're a corporate that deals with education of your staff and so on, maybe now there's an invite to your learning management system. And then there's already the possibility to submit next year's speaking proposals and so on and so on. And just to add on top of that, that's also usually where the registration opens for next year. If you're confused or if I'm losing you, that is the point I'm trying to make. After an event, the follow-up that's happening from a lot of event organizers is pretty disjointed. There's a lot of stuff that's getting mixed up. There's a lot of different sources that communicate with you. And there's a big problem with that. Because as an event planner, to quote the fantastic American businesswoman Taylor Allison Swift, you give your blood, sweat, and tears for this. But, by the way, any Swifties here? I see you. You give your blood, sweat, and tears for this. And if after your event there's like this convoluted, mixed up messaging, that means a lot of what you fought for during your event slowly dies down. And that's something that you want to avoid. And so looking at the communications challenges that you have is, all these steps that I mentioned earlier on, they're all important because you want to inform your members. But you're creating this disjointed communication, and maybe some of the information is not relevant. Thinking again about all the exhibitors that are going to spam you for the next week. And it's happening on multiple platforms. So some is on the event app, then you have a learning management system, then you have yet another system, then you have maybe the event website, and you have like a YouTube account where stuff is happening, and then it's just all over the place. And it's also owned by different people. And as I said, that is kind of leading to the point where the buzz, the excitement, the passion that you really fire up during the conference, where that just completely goes away. And on top of that, also you have limited resources when it comes to new content, like webinars and programs and so on. You need to create that stuff, but also you're probably only 1 or 2 people in your event team. You don't necessarily have the budget to buy the tools needed. It's really hard to allocate resource. The content is maybe very relevant during the time of the event, but also it ages relatively quickly. And just maintaining that momentum is really, really hard. So that's kind of the situation that a lot of event planners face, and that we're trying to help you guys take a deep breath. There it is again. Take a step back and try to figure out how to kind of sort this out, how to get some order in it, and how to create engaging event experiences. The first thing I want to share is this inverse pyramid. This is by Amanda Lee Kaiser, who wrote the actually really good book, Elevating Engagement. Personally, I'm in the business of selling event technology. I'm not in the business of selling books. But if you want to learn anything about communities and if you want to start somewhere, this book is really, really good. She talks about a member journey at any kind of community. So this could be an online community, like maybe somebody that you follow on Twitter or X or whatever it's called next week. This could be an association that you're a member of, but this could also be a workplace that you're working at. And all people that get involved with a community, they all follow the same 5 steps. They may not follow all of them, but it always happens in the same order. So the first thing when you join a new community or when you're thinking of becoming part of a new community is the observation stage. So you land somewhere. This may be your local farmer's market. This may be a YouTube channel. This may be a professional association, whatever it is, and you observe. You look at the people around you. You look at what's going on, what are the contents, what is being talked about, how do people behave, how do people dress up, all that stuff. And then in the second stage, members start assessing. Is this right for me? Is this relevant to me? Are these my people? Do our values align? And they don't necessarily have to align, but it's a check that everybody does intuitively. And if you think about the last community that you joined, it's probably very similar. In February, finally, for the first time in my life, I joined a gym. And I promise you, like the steps that I went through so far are pretty much the same. And then talking about the gym comes step 3, where you become an active member. But you never see somebody becoming an active member straight away. They first go through the observation and assessment phases before they become an active participant. And only once you have people that are active participants, you start to contribute. And only once you have contributed for a bit, you start to lead. Now, why am I showing you this? A, because charts always make me look really smart. But the main reason why I'm showing you this is a lot of times when we talk to customers about communities, the first thing that once you sign up for their community, and again, this could be an online platform, this could be an association, this could be your local CSR committee at your workplace. The first thing that you usually get is an email that tells you how to contribute or how to participate in that organization, in that community. But really, that's the wrong way to go about it. You need to go through these first 2 stages first before you can even ask people to participate, contribute, and lead. And that's one of the major things that we need to understand, and that's also something that I'm going to discuss in a minute. So, how do we build an event-led community? One of the things that I want to share with you, the platform that EventMobi sells is awesome, and we do a really good event app, and come and see us and talk about event communities and all that jazz. Happy to do so, but it is not about the platform. If you start building a community, any platform is fine. You don't need to compare 200 different suppliers. Whatever works for you is fine. It's really about how you do it. One of the things that we always pitch at EventMobi is, because you may already use an event app, everyone is already there. There's already possibilities to host your content on there. There's possibilities to have one-on-one and group discussions. There's sponsor engagement on there, and it works online and in person. So if you already have an event app at your event, try using that. But whatever you have, whatever is available to you is fine. In that regard, I guess the saying works also for community platforms. The best community platform you can you can get is the one you probably have. And then the second bit that's really important here, again, doesn't matter what platform you use, is to really look at it and split it up. So we came up with this alphabet formula, the ABCDE formula, which stands for activities and content, breathe. There's a lot about breathing, community engagement, delegation, and the event platform. So let's look at these one by one. If I want to create an event-led community, the first thing I want to think about is the activities and the content. So one thing that, it drives me nuts. We've been talking about this during and since the pandemic, but it somehow seems that not a lot has happened. Repurposing content is one of the most powerful things that you as an event organizer can do. And if you're watching this recording after the event is over, Northwest Event Show is really good at doing that. So, instead of a lot of event organizers, when we see that they're trying to kind of do things for their community in between the events, they always think they need new, fresh content. But that's not true. And it's not because, you want to cheat your audience to believe that some of the old content is now really fresh. But it is about, not everybody watches content. Content also gets sometimes better when you watch it a second or third time. So making video recordings available on a platform, and not only make it available immediately after the show, but you're completely fine to stagger it throughout the year. The second thing that we see now more and more is AI-generated summaries. So there's two things that are happening here. There's a bunch of tools where you can upload videos and it creates a highlight reel for your event that's cut down to the essence. That's already great. The other thing, and you may relate to this if you're looking at news websites where you want to read an article, but all you have is a video, no CNN. I just want to read whatever happened to Joe Biden's dog. I don't want to see a video. And AI is really good at taking transcripts. As you can see, this transcript that you see there is also AI generated, and kind of distilling it down into an article. One thing that we do, even at our internal events, is also writing down the answers of the Q&A session and making it available to people. Sponsor highlight videos, on-site interviews, personal show recaps by whoever were your influencing audience members. That's stuff that really belongs onto your online community. And none of that stuff, again, you need to do a lot throughout the year to create that, because all the raw materials, all the source materials, they are already created during your big annual conference. And so the next step that I want to talk about is mini events. And in line with what I said before, reruns of popular sessions is actually something that really, really works. You can take a session and watch it together. If you have a platform that allows you to enable live chat, it's going to become very, very lively. People are going to discuss, and it's genuinely, and again, I'm an event planner myself. I can refer to that we always think that we need to do things fresh and new and exciting and so on, and our attendees only deserve the best. But doing a rerun of a really popular session in an online platform, there's actually nothing disingenuous about it. We're doing a service to our attendees by doing that. So, dare to do that. Next thing, obviously, special webinars by sponsors is something that they love, but also that that's really useful for your attendees. We're trying to do this with NWES as well, which after this event is over, we're turning their event app into a year-round Northwest Event Show community. And one thing that we want to do is go to these exhibitors that you met today and that hopefully you started to appreciate. And while it's great to be at a booth of one of the hotels here, nothing beats being able to be in a live stream and visit their kitchen and kind of go on a behind-the-scenes tour. And that's something that's super easy to do with a community platform. So being able to have sponsor showcases or even just customer story showcases, that's something that can easily be done and has probably more value than just sending out an email from a sponsor saying, we want to highlight our sponsor XYZ. Instead, if you do this, you're actually providing value to your audience and you're providing value to your sponsors. Networking is a major part of events, and so if you have a member directory on your community platform, that's great. One thing that I will recommend, though, is networking doesn't necessarily work very well by itself, especially not in an online setting. So if you have an online community and you want them to network, you need to do some of that hard work for your community. So ideally you would do maybe like a one-on-one networking hour where you could introduce members to each other and then they could go off into their own little virtual room to talk about whatever they want to talk about. But just having a member list where people can send each other messages usually doesn't work very well. It takes a little work from the organizer to really get the networking alive. And then, you know, having online meetups, having online AMA series where you can maybe bring somebody in. We did this, did anybody join the session before Northwest Event Show that we did online? We did a session before Northwest Event Show where you could ask Lisa and Stuart about all the exciting developments that we have at Northwest Event Show. And it was really well received, even though obviously none of you were there, but that's fine. The second thing, and this is why I'm so obsessed with briefing. I mean, other than if I don't brief, I'm just going to fall off the stage. But it's really important for communities. And again, something that a lot of event organizers, especially because they don't have necessarily the experience of running a community, forget. So what we mean by breathing, and let me actually just bring the entire slide on there, is it doesn't just make sense to dump everything in front of your audience and tell them have fun, but instead you kind of need to pace it. Just like breathing has a pace, your online community also needs to have a pace. So what we would recommend is that you plan throughout the year a few, I guess what I would call like light tower events if you want. So these could be webinars, special networking hours, or even your in-person get-togethers to draw the community in, so kind of a breathing in motion. But also make sure that you space them out. So it doesn't make sense to have a session once a week because who has the time to commit to something once a week? But make sure that they are spaced out so they work for your community. But then also doing that breathing out motion. So having a moment where your audience, your community can kind of engage offline with your community, have release content that doesn't need interaction in between throughout the year, and make sure that it's not always full on, because that's not going to work for your community. So kind of pacing between releasing content that is engaging, but also giving them time to do their own thing in between. That's one of the most important things when talking about online communities. We talked about content, we talked about pacing. Let's talk about engagement now. So one of the things about online communities that we see that's working really, really well is to try to not necessarily control everything. I know that as event planners, we love being in control of everything, but allowing your audience also to come up with their own ideas to be able to contribute is something that's incredibly valuable. Making sure that if you're using an event app for your online community, you activate things like the online community. If you have an activity feed, you keep that going. that's super helpful. And also sometimes you need to create incentives. So this could be gamifying content consumption. I'm not sure if anybody of you is taking part in the challenge over here where you can go to all of the exhibitors, collect points and win some stuff. That also works online, and it sometimes even works a little bit easier online. So you can make sure that you incentivize content consumption. You can also create new, you don't need to create all of the challenges at the beginning, but you can create challenges throughout the year so people are incentivized to come back over and over and over again. And one of the great things with online communities is if you have sponsors, they usually love contributing prizes. The other thing when engaging, so the engagement that I talked about so far is all really focused on getting people to do something for themselves, but also think about being able to do something for you. So survey them in between, ask how they like it, get feedback from them, and also share that feedback. Communities value transparency and openness, and if you do that, they will thank you, and they will also, if you share results, one of the effects that come with that is that audiences actually start sharing more results because they now know that these results are being listened to and these surveys are being taken into consideration. So by sharing the results, not only are you being transparent, but you're also incentivizing people to give you even more feedback. The one bit that's really hard, and I touched on this earlier, that usually teams are pretty small, but being able to delegate is one of the most important bits when you're doing a community, because a community is alive 24/7 and 365 days a year. And so if you're, generally speaking, event planners, they are not necessarily your community managers. So what that means is that look at who you have in your team and try to see if you can bring them in as community managers, if you can engage the sales and sponsorship team to help you with your community, if there's a marketing manager that can help you with your community, and so on. So thinking that just because you want to turn your event into a community, it all needs to rest with the event organizer itself. Not necessarily the best way of going about it. And if you're an association, even your board could become part of managing your community, and thus hopefully making it easier for you to run that community, because it's not all on you. And again, one of the most important things here is consistency. So if you're running a community, you also want to interact with your members. So it doesn't work to, well, you need to go on vacation, definitely, but if you go on vacation, somebody else needs to respond to the members, because if these communities don't have a specific cadence, a specific rhythm, they tend to die off pretty quickly. So being able to delegate that between a bunch of people is probably the easiest way forward. And then finally, if you, and referring back to the chart that I showed you earlier on, if you have your members, your fans on board, then they will also start contributing to communities. So where do you host that community? There's community platforms out there. There's really good platforms out there. The other thing that I really recommend is if you have an event app, have a look at that event app and see if it's capable of running your community. Because again, the event app is something that a lot of people download at your annual event, and it simplifies access. So, maybe you already have something like a password that works for all of your properties within your organization or within your association. We call that a single sign-on. And if your event app is connected to that, that makes it really easy for everybody to join. The second thing that these event apps usually do pretty well is you can have different access levels for different people. And so depending on who is joining your community or who is entering your community, they may also see different things. So you could have sub-communities by regional chapters. You could have sub-communities by interest topic. If you have a CRM system or an HR system or an association management system, being able to integrate that data so you don't have to transfer all your member data manually into your community platform makes it really nice. And if you have an event app, you have events in between, you can always run them just in there. So there's, in terms of simplifying access, there's a lot of advantages to the event, to using an event app. In terms of customization, obviously most event apps allow you to adjust the look and feel. Also after your event is over as opposed to before the event is over. So they kind of come naturally equipped with most of the features that you need to run a community. So when I'm talking about the features, obviously what you want is a place to store your content, so video and documents. You want a member directory for your community. You want the possibility for members to connect and network one-on-one. An online community space, so a space where your community can exchange information, where they can talk. An activity feed, something like your LinkedIn feed, your Twitter feed, your Facebook feed, where the most recent information can be shared. You probably want abilities to host webinars in between. You want abilities to engage with your sponsors. And then when we're talking about engagement communication, one thing that I didn't mention that is really powerful about using event apps is obviously, because they're an app, you can do push notifications to it. So that means that you can also break through the noise that happens with your emails and again, reach your members slightly easier. And that stuff I already talked about. Okay, just before we wrap up, last opportunity to take a deep breath. And by the way, you're also allowed to take deep breaths outside of this session. So if this becomes too noisy, just walk outside. The weather is really nice. Forget to take a deep breath. And also don't forget to take a deep breath. And also don't forget that your community needs to breathe. So I just want to reiterate on this because this is really the most important bit in this entire presentation. Inhaling means do events. This could be webinars, this could be in-person events, this could be whatever you want to bring everybody together. Exhaling means let your members of your community explore on their own. Consistency is also really important, just like it is with breathing. So create expectations with a calendar. Let your audience know what they're expecting. Surprise them every once in a while. This is really, I've been doing events for over 15 years, and I'm more and more coming to the conclusion that the only thing that we can do as event planners to really help our audience remember the events is being able to surprise them. When I walked down to, who has not been down to the ground floor? Okay, some people haven't been, but if you walk down there, there's a bunch of surprises, which I'm not going to spoiler now. And I think this is really the most important bit with events. We need to surprise our audiences. So think about also surprising your communities. And sprinkle. So spread content release over time. Don't release everything just the day after the event. The other kind of sentence that we came up with is ham. So not like ham with one word, with one A, but this is about how you want to make your attendees feel in your audience. And you want them to be hopeful, you want them to feel accepted, you want them to feel active, and you also want them to feel that your community is active. You want them to feel adventurous, and you want them to feel motivated. And these are kind of basic building blocks that it's really easy to find ways of doing this. And if you do this consistently, that is going to change your community big time. So with that, the recording is going to be online. Thank you for your time. And if you want to connect with me, you can scan my QR code. And if there are any questions, there's a microphone. And I have 10 more minutes. So thank you. If there's no questions, do you cut my microphone already? Okay, my MC is gone, so I'm just going to moderate myself off. Let me just check what's on the program. I'm not prepared to do this, so let me just check out. Okay. Well, thank you for joining this session with Torben today. This afternoon at 1:40, there's a session about AI. So see you maybe there. And now go and enjoy lunch. And thank you very much for joining Torben this morning at Northwest Event Show. Take care.